Skinny Hardaway Son T. I'm back with another EP. Y'all do your boy a favor, y'all smash that like button for your boy when you roll on in. Whether you're here for a good time or a long time, I greatly appreciate you sliding through. If this your first time, do your boy solid. Don't make it your last time. We talk this good boxing, sports, MMA, football, basketball, collegiate, amateur, professional, every single day, not just today. And I ain't gonna waste too much of y'all time with this EP right here, but I do want to have a conversation with y'all. I'm one of them people who like to finish what I start, right? And me along with a lot of people, right? Not everybody finished right, but along with a lot of people, right? Me myself, we started the year real high on Deion Sanders in Colorado, and what he was doing for college football and what he did for JSU and what he could do for the Colorado Buffaloes. Marky Dan was good, Daniel Berry was good. Appreciate y'all folks sliding through this thing. Glad y'all can make it, man. If y'all could hit that thumbs up for your boy, uh, like, share, subscribe. Let them know, we over here live talking these good sports right now. We having us a NCAA conversation. I'm just saying right now how I'm one of the people, right, who like to finish what I start, right? And Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes, they officially have wrapped up their season, right? Deion's inaugural season at Colorado, right? And again, me and like a lot of people, we started on the Deion train heavy, right? We believe, we had hope, that Deion will be able to make a change, that he would have a good season, right? And it didn't quite go like we expected, right? But I'm here to, I'm not even here to give you a different perspective, right? I'm just here, to put a couple things on the table, right? And maybe, give you a little insight. And maybe you may look at actually what happened with Dion and the Colorado Buffaloes a different way, right? So the first question, right, is, I asked the grade. Like, what was your Colorado Buffaloes grade this year with Dion's first year? But before we get into that, let's really think about this, right? Think about the best college football teams, right? Think about, and not even just this year as well, though, right? But think about the best college football teams, whether this year, you know, last year, previous years, just in general, the best college football teams, right? How often do you mention the Colorado Buffaloes when you talk about the best teams in college football? You don't, right? We never have. You don't. I think Colorado Buffaloes might have gotten one championship in their existence. You know what I mean? But we don't mention Colorado Buffaloes when we talk about the best teams in college football, right? Now, realistically, right? Now we had expectations for Dion, right? And a lot like super fans, right? When I say our, I mean like super fans, right? I had realistic expectations. I'm about to put it, I'm about to put this thing together for y'all, right? But the super fans, right? We had unrealistic expectations, right? Right. We could expect him to go out there and beat Oregon and beat USC, which he almost did beat USC, right? And beat Stanford, right? And beat, Oregon State and whatnot, all those teams in the Pac-12, right? We could get that set in our head that, Dion's going to go out there and he's going to beat them. But realistically, that Colorado Buffaloes team, historically and now, it's a bad program. It's so bad that last year, right, the year before this year, before Dion got there, take a guess on how many games that Colorado Buffalo program that Colorado Buffalo program football team won. That team won one game before Deion Sanders got there, right? Deion Sanders literally went to the worst. Deion Sanders literally went to the worst college football team in the nation. One of the worst, the bottom, like one of the bottom five worst college football teams in the nation. That team won one game last year, right? Now, if you look at it on the grand scheme of things, right? You look at the record, that team went 4-8. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, they went 4-8. You say, well, Dion had a bad season, but if you compare it to their last season before Dion got there, that team quadrupled their wins from last year to this year. They won three more games to get a total of four wins. Last year, they had one win, right? So if we're speaking just off of success right alone. You know what I mean? He had tons of success. He quadrupled the win total, right? From 1 to 4. Now, while he wasn't bowl eligible, right? Their recruiting class before Deion Sanders got there, it was ranked like 200 and something, right? It was like in the bottom half of the nation in recruit. You know what I mean? It has never it hadn't had a top recruiting it hadn't had a top 50 recruiting class ever, and it hadn't had a top 100 recruiting class in almost 10 years. Dion's first year there, Dion had the 21st ranked recruiting class in the nation. Dion had a 25 top ranked recruiting class his first year there. So by those terms, Dion most definitely had a more successful year than previously. Now, this news that's trickling around lately, this is really why I did this video because I want to talk about it, right? This, uh, this really what I want to talk about, right? You know what I mean? Now, realistically, we could say, yeah, Dion should beat Oregon, but Oregon is competing for championships every single year. If you follow college football, you know there was no way that Dion was going to get that team in year one and go and win the Pac-12 championship over Oregon or SEC with that Colorado Buffalo team. Dion didn't go take over the University of Florida. He ain't go take over Florida State. You know what I mean? He went to take over Colorado. We're comparing Dion's expectations to Nick Saban, right? We're comparing a fourth year coach's expectation to a 40-year coach, right? We're comparing him to Nick Saban in Alabama. We're comparing him to Kirby Smart in Georgia, right? When that's not realistic of us to put that on Dion at this point with that Colorado Buffaloes team. If we're talking good one, if we're talking year one, in realistic expectations, not y'all really thought Dion was gonna compete for a playoff spot this year, like realistically, that's not plausible. Like there was not a realistic expectation if you really thought that. You know what I mean? Look at the history of that Colorado Buffalo team. You thought that team was going to be able to compete with Oregon, with Oregon State, with a USC, who they almost beat, right? In year one, realistically, no, I didn't think that. The news that's going around lately, right? About the recruits that decommitted from them. Uh, Two of those recruits are in the class of 2025, right? So that's not really going to affect him for next year. And then he had a couple wide receivers decommit, right? Their team is pretty stout at wide receiver anyway, right? But the one that actually hurt him is he did lose an inside offensive lineman, right? So that's the one that did hurt him. So that is a knock. That would be the only knock because that team is is uh it's it's light in the trenches, right? As far as the offensive line, defensive lines, you know what I mean? Go especially the offensive line, right? So for them to use an offensive lineman, that was tough. So that probably will be the only strike that I give Dion when I'm thinking realistic expectations for Dion. In the beginning, right? Even me too, I fell into the hype, right? Yeah, they finna go out here and they finna be one of the best teams in the nation, right? But you gotta really think about it. Really think about it. That team was not equipped, right? It's going to take him some time to build the foundation to get that team where we expect the level them to be at, Dion, the success that we expect from Dion. It's going to take him at least, 3 to 4 years to really get his people in, to get his system in, right? On top of, him really not having the right coaches. The coach he started the year with, right? He didn't finish the year with, right? So he got to get, his system, right? The right system for, the players incorporated. It was like a year in motion, you know what I mean, for Colorado, right? Don't view the mistake people are making. They're looking at Deion Sanders. PGH, what's good, PGH? They're looking at Deion Sanders and they're looking at it through an eye of, oh, he's at a powerhouse school. That school is far from a powerhouse school. You know what I mean? uh Deion Sanders, like right, like I was saying, like you got to build from the ground up, right? He got a good quarterback in his son, right? He got good skill positions, got good wide receivers, got good running back, right? He got a good starting DBs. Got to get more depth, you know what I mean, in that defensive secondary, and mainly the big thing he got to do is focus on bulking up, that offensive and defensive line. Like, it's Colorado. It's literally one of the worst college programs in the NCAA historically. They won one game last year, right? You know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying Dion had a great year, especially if you comparing him to Alabama or Oregon or Nick Saban or Kirby Smart. Of course, he didn't have a great year, but if you're comparing him to the other past successors at Colorado, if you're comparing him to the Colorado Buffalo standard, right? If you're comparing him to that program that he's actually coaching, that he's trying to turn around, that he's trying to improve, year one, he's done better than any coach who has came through that school in one year. Do you know how hard it is to get players to go to Colorado to play over Florida State, over Georgia, over Alabama, over Ole Miss, over USC, over Oregon? The facilities at Oregon, the facilities at USC, right? The facilities at uh you know Alabama, a lot of these places, these top schools, it's gonna take a little time. You know what I mean? It's gonna take some time, and it's gonna take people that believe. You know what I mean? And that's what Dion is working with. Dion is working with. You know what I mean? You see, we can compete with these teams, right? But we need a little more to get us over the hump. Dion is working with, hope. Dion is working off the fact that you see, I went from one game to 4 games. If we can get you on the squad, then my 4 games might go to, 8 games, might go to 10 games, and that's a bowl, right? To I think the people's expectations were extremely high of Deion Sanders with what he actually had in front of him and what he actually had to work with. If we talking about what he actually had to work with, which was the Colorado's Buffaloes program, Deion Sanders, he did pretty good. Year one. Again, the team won one game last year, right? And he's building a foundation, and he got a good QB to start with, right? He got some skill positions, and it's gonna take him some time. You know what I mean? To get that depth that he needs to really compete. He's in the Pac-12, right? He's in the Pac-12. If realistically, realistically, when you talk about the top teams in college football, you're never going to mention Colorado Buffaloes. The only reason that we even talk about the Colorado Buffaloes now is because Dion is there, and we know what Dion brings, and we expect, excellence, right? And if you could, and if you being honest with yourself, and you being honest with what Colorado is and where they stand in college football, Deion Sanders literally quadrupled their team's win success from one year, from last year to this year. He took their team from having a top 200 recruiting class to having a top 25 recruiting class. He's already, before Dion got there, that team hadn't had a top 100 recruiting class in 10 years. Dion this year, right? And this year's not even over. He's already ranked at number 62 in recruit right now. They want to tell you about the recruits that he lost, right? But it's still a lot of recruits that he have, and he's only had one recruit that affected, what's going on this year, and that's that one offensive lineman. But that's the only really, negative I give Dion, right, is that I don't really care about the quarterbacks that's supposed to come in 2 years and whatnot. He gonna be able to find somebody, to come throw their rock for him. Or you know what I mean? I don't think Deion Sanders' problem is ever going to be him getting recruits. Deion Sanders' problem more so is going to be getting the recruits to understand that what you saw, right? What you see is the product of me not having enough, me not having that depth. If I add you to the roster, then those games that we competed in, right? Uh, those organs, right? We come out on top. Uh, you know what I mean? If he's able to get those top, when he's able to pile up those top notch guys, right? You know what I mean? But on the grand scheme of things, if you're being realistic in it, right? You can't compare Prime to the Nick Sabans. You can't compare Prime to the Kirby Smarts, right? Because he's not at a top Power Five program. He's in the top Power Five conference, and he's trying to build one of the worst programs in college football, right? And so if you comparing the stats from where that team was and where that team is at right now, Prime did tremendous, right? And I'm gonna actually give you some numbers, right? So you don't just gotta take my word for it, right? I'm gonna give you some numbers, right? I'm gonna give you some numbers, right? Can y'all hear me? Make sure y'all can hear me. For it, right? I'm gonna give you some numbers, right? So 2022, the year before Prime got there, right? That Colorado Buffaloes total points per game was 15.4. They averaged 15 points a game last year. That's two touchdowns, right? That's two touchdowns. This year, Colorado Buffaloes averaged 28 points per game. They almost doubled their points per game in 1 year of Coach Prime being there. And people will tell you that, he didn't have a successful year. Right. He didn't have a successful year if you thought the Colorado Buffaloes, who has never been a contender, was going to win the national championship. Then now he didn't have a good year, right? But if you actually know that coaching takes time, building blocks step by step, year by year, then you know goddamn well. Then you know goddamn well that what Colorado used to be, Colorado isn't anymore, right? So they went from averaging 15 points a game to 28 points a game in Coach Prime's first year, right? They went from scoring 22 touchdowns total to scoring 42 touchdowns total. There's 20 more touchdowns in the year span from Coach Prime, you know, being there, right? And again, that went from having one game, it went from winning one game to winning four games, right? So Coach Prime literally doubled up that team scoring. He doubled up that team scoring. Efficiency wise, that team doubled up everything that they did. So if he was able to do that year one, Coach Prime said it, best himself. He said, "What we is right now, this is the worst that we go be, and you got to understand what they is right now is the worst that they go be. You know what I mean? So if we being realistic, right? If we wasn't, a lot of us wasn't, right? A lot of us wasn't. When they started 4-0, right? I ain't gonna lie, I had extremely realistic expectations, right, at the start of the year, just like everybody else. I do y'all want better, right? Y'all remember what teams were saying about Deion in Colorado before the season started, right? Not when the season started, not when they beat TSU in their shootout, right? Not when they beat TSU in their shootout, but before the season started. Y'all know how many games Coach Prime was projected to win with this Colorado Buffalo team? You probably don't, right? But before the year started and after the year started, that tune and that tone completely switched about their team. Now, why it may seem like they fell tremendously, right, 4-8, but before this year started, that team was projected to win two games. So if we going off their projected total, he doubled up his win total in their projected total, right? Rankings wise, statistics wise, before the year started, Colorado was one of the bottom teams in every preseason poll. Again, projected to win two games. He won four games. Actually, won one game last year. He quadrupled that, and he doubled up his projected win total. Now, I'm not telling you to throw a party for four wins, but what I'm telling you is that we're not comparing his four wins to Alabama's nine or Michigan's nine or Ohio State's eight or Georgia's 10, right? We're comparing him to Colorado, that program, where that program was, where that program is going, where that program is trending. And if we're actually talking about where that program was, where it's at, and where it's going, it's looking a lot better than it was looking before Coach Prime got there. I guarantee you that. Most people will give Coach Prime a F his first year, a D. And I feel like if you giving him an F or a D and he quadrupled his win total, then I think you need to reevaluate your football knowledge, right? But for Coach Prime's first year, I'm gonna give Coach Prime a C plus. You know what I mean? He doubled up their team's total scoring almost, right? And he quadrupled their team's win total from last year to this year. He won two more games than his projected total, right? He took that team from virtually unknown football program to one of the most talked about, football programs in the nation. That's exposure. That's going to bring recruits. It already has. He took that football program from 200 plus recruiting to number 25. Right now, he currently sits at number 62. They hadn't had a top 100 recruiting class in over 10 years. So Coach Prime improved that team in that facet as well, right? If you listen to a lot of the mainstream media who had unrealistic expectations, there's no way you thought Coach Prime Colorado Buffaloes was going to compete and beat Oregon and Alabama in them their first year and go to a national championship, and it just don't work like that. You know what I mean? But I'm giving Coach Prime a C plus, right? From 1 win to 4 wins, he doubled up the points, right? Got way better recruits. His first year, he got his quarterback. He got extremely talented wide receivers, running backs. He got extremely he got extremely talented defenders. He got to get some depth behind them, and I think they gonna do even better next year. You know what I mean? But I ain't gonna hold y'all up too long on this EP. We about to come back on the next thing. We gonna make our bets. You know what I mean? I just had to get this off my chest. You had to give y'all again. I like to finish what I start. I started the season with Prime. I'm gonna end it with Prime. And I need everybody who hopped off the bus. Don't be trying to hop back on the bus when that team get rolling and get to going. Because I'm gonna tell you, you weren't with us shooting in the jam. But I digress. Skin the Hardaway Southern T. This ain't the past. This ain't the future. But this the present. This how we rocking. And I'm out. Love.